Hello, Mr. Webb. My name is OREL and I am addressing you from Poland. Please forgive me for not showing my face nor introducing myself with the full name, but I have a job, and I do not want to expose myself to losing it, especially after what I am going to say in this video. I do not think it's necessary to reveal myself if it's about delivering a message. If there ever is need for that, we may have a more open introduction in private. The reason why I'm addressing you in public is because of the videos which you made recently, so I would like to provide you answers to some of your questions and at the same time make you an offer, a proposition, assuming you truly care about the future of your country. I will attempt to appeal to your reason, Mr. Webb, because our future is at stake here, and after observing your channel, I realized that you are on the right track on connecting the dots behind what is going on and where everything is heading to with this madness which is occurring within your own country as well as across the Western world. I will also try to explain to you, Mr. Webb, what is most likely going to happen to our countries in this world system if we are not going to do something about it. I will have lots to say, lots of issues to address related to our current situation. I will also ask you lots of questions which will help you to rethink things and hopefully either agree with me or correct me if my logic is wrong anyhow. Please remember, those are subjects of which understanding may have a huge impact on our future, the future of our nations and our future generations in this world. So in advance, I am asking you as well for your patience while listening to this long audio message. I will also send you a transcript of this message by email. You see, Mr. Webb, this process of the destruction of our civilization is affecting all our countries of European people across the globe. Some countries are affected more, some less. In some countries the process is more advanced. In some it's further behind, especially in Eastern Europe, which is generally more poor and more religious. But I can tell you from personal observation that we are catching up with the West very fast. And there is also one huge problem which our nations share in common, and which will have exactly the same severe consequences for the future survival of our nations in the original European form. And for some reason, nobody is talking about this problem as the greatest threat for our civilization, and I really would like to know why. Before I will reveal the biggest threat for the survival of European nations in the future, I will allow myself to summarize the current problems which you are speaking about very often in your own videos. So, the madness from the left. What is it exactly? It is a normalization of abnormal and self-destructive social behaviors, openly accepted and promoted corruption of traditional Christian moral standards, which evolves our countries into a society model like Sodom and Gomorrah or the Weimar Republic. Obviously, the promotion of the Marxist ideology and ideas, the destruction of traditional European religions, cultures, or even the traditional model of the nuclear family and gender roles. What follows are irresponsible or even crazy decisions when it comes to economic policy and energy production within our own countries, with an obsession about ecological means of production, which drastically reduce the economic potential of our countries, making it impossible for us to compete with countries who do not apply strict rules and regulations. Also, it's worthwhile to mention that our countries are selling away technology, which is basically the last element keeping our economy competitive with the rest of the world. Another thing, the evolution of monolithic European societies into the multicultural model, with the famous quote of many political gurus and third-party social engineers saying, "Diversity is our strength." But obviously it's not. It's destroying national unity, dividing our nations into smaller groups of interest, with different ideologies, values, and cultures which will turn against each other in any future crisis situations. In fact, people with European origins will be the most hated and blamed for everything that will go wrong with the functionality of our current globalized economic system, which will increase hostility of minority groups in our countries towards us if the rules of law will cease to function. Of course, we cannot forget about the rewriting of history to suit the needs and standards of the modern society, or the agenda of minority groups within our countries. With that also comes indoctrination by the modern education and media, for the most part, about the eternal guilt and shame for European people for the crimes supposedly committed by our ancestors. But the effects are that some young people hate themselves, feeling a responsibility to help and welcome non-European people in our countries, and attack anyone in politics or social activity who is trying to protect our national values, culture, traditions, or monolithic models of society. Let's also add to this an overwhelming promotion of multi-ethnic couples, generally in every form of industry, and we have a very dangerous mix, which will definitely add a lot to the problems of demography in our countries. And speaking of demography, this is the biggest possible threat for our future existence, which is barely talked about. I will explain quickly why. I live in Poland. I shouldn't be concerned that much because our situation here is relatively stable for now. But I do understand that if Western Europe falls, so will my country. We share one major threat to our future existence, which is the problem of demographics. You see, we were all complaining for years about uncontrolled immigration into Europe or the United States. This demographic problem, this shift within our nations will eventually backfire badly when the older generations will be going on to retirement, which will be used as a perfect excuse by our politicians to not only keep the gates open for migrants, but to actually start inviting and importing people into our countries from all over the world so they can match the numbers in the economy to secure the GDP and the functionality of our countries. They focus only on the numbers while ignoring the reality of bringing people with hostile cultures or religions into our countries. I assure you, Mr. Webb, they are going to use the lie of demographic problems and the aging population, climate change, and the food supply shortages as an excuse for a full-scale open and welcoming migration policy, which will rapidly speed up the destruction of our nations. And what we have been witnessing when it comes to uncontrolled migration in the last 10 years will be nothing compared to the floods which they are planning for us in the near future, because the numbers in the available workforce will have to match. Every economic book describing this issue is clearly stating that if you cannot secure natural generational replacement of your workforce, of the population in your country, the best alternative solution is to rely on migration. Since all of our countries with European people are having the same demographic problems of the low birth rates among the European population, our countries will be inviting even more people from outside of Europe, more than what has come to Europe in the past 10 years, so that they may fill the demographic gap among the youth within our countries. It will be an exodus of biblical proportions when it comes to replacing of indigenous people with their own countries. So, Mr. Webb, all the problems which you are addressing in your videos will escalate, when this massive migration into Europe in the future will start taking place. And it cannot be avoided until our politicians decide to sacrifice economic sustainability for the preservation of our European ethnic groups, which is obviously not going to happen. But why is it happening across the whole world, in the countries of European people especially? Where are the trends and popularization of those self-destructive ideas and ideologies coming from? Well, it's definitely not because life in our countries was so comfortable and people went crazy on a mass scale, deciding they suddenly should promote all of that on their own. No, the narration comes from the top. It's visible everywhere. It's not only political decisions, but a huge influence on our nations comes from the mass media. First it was newspapers, radio, television. Today it's the internet and the whole entertainment industry, even the education system within our countries. All of them promote this self-hatred toward our own history and cultures, while at the same time encouraging, or should I say, indoctrinating people to welcome non-European values, cultures, and open borders policy. Loving and trying to preserve your own people, if you are of European descent, is branded as a racism or fascism. It is not a natural process of mental evolution. What is happening is exactly what a man called Yuri Bezmenov was talking about back in the 1984. Please, if you haven't seen videos about him, Mr. Webb, I encourage you to do so. I will link you to his material in the description below. And this ideological narration did not come to Europe from the USSR, but it came from the United States, from Hollywood and more. And to the United States it came from the Frankfurt School in Germany. But it did not spread that cancerous ideas here, because certain men in Germany drove them out from Europe before World War II. So, Mr. Webb, we know how this narration in our countries is being promoted. There are people behind it with a lot of money, but why? Why would anyone want to do this to European people? Is it because this type of cultural and monolithic destruction of European societies is good for the business maybe? Making profits in corporation and Western companies which promote and support this madness so much? Definitely not. Also, those business owners would be promoting ideas and lifestyle with the aim of improving the demographic growth among the native population where their businesses operate in, and instead they promote a live free without responsibilities lifestyle among the young people in the West, which obviously strikes at the traditional modern family and will backfire hard at their businesses and profits with time. So now, money is not the deciding factor here why those giant corporations and companies are promoting what they do, because it's clearly bad for their business in the long run. It's extremely profitable for all sorts of industries if families have lots of children. Raising a child within our system is a very expensive and a long-lasting source of profits for any company or corporations out there. Does all of this basically mean that the world international ruling elites, the most wealthy people on this planet, the main shareholders in those corporations, industries, companies, and banks, are having an agenda to literally destroy their own countries and people and their own businesses in the process? Assuming the international ruling elites are a European people. I mean, they must understand the consequences of the current trends in the media and society. Trends which they introduced into society and started to promote. So long as they do not want to sync their own businesses with the downfall of society and the economy in the West, then why would they be doing that? Did they lose their mind? Are all the elites that short-sighted, are fools, so irresponsible to not see what they are doing? Or are they insane? I find it unlikely that the most powerful and wealthy people in the West are that short-sighted and irresponsible, or suddenly possessed by the insanity which they do promote in the Western world today. This is the reason, Mr. Webb, why so many young people who are still capable of independent critical thinking are radicalizing themselves or turning their beliefs into so-called conspiracy theories. Because there are writings or even books from the early 20th century clearly stating what is happening in our society today, like it was planned all along. And there is always this big coincidence that every time people do their research and follow the money, the same groups of people are involved at the top. And they are clearly stating their agenda, which is matching precisely what is happening in our world. And if it all makes sense and is matching the patterns, then there is not really a valid reason that we should not believe that those conspiracy theories might be fake. But let's leave it aside, because talking about them might get people censored on the internet. And speaking of which, I must warn you, Mr. Webb, that there were many people before you, many years before you, who were openly talking about the problems which you started pointing out on your channel, which got them banned on this platform and many others. So, by discussing the subjects which you do, you are stepping on a thin line. If you cross this line, your YouTube account might end up suspended as well. So, just some friendly advice. Please watch your words and the claims which you make, because in our reality, facts and the truth are treated as a matter of perspective. If you speak about it in public, they might accuse you of spreading hate, racism, or even disinformation. I know it's dramatic and unjust, but that's how things work in our modern world, where only a certain narration is allowed to be heard in public on the most popular internet platforms. Your video production about debunking the fake narration of history online is like throwing a rock into the sea. It will have no impact on the general situation or the majority of people in your country. Your message, no matter how true and righteous it is, will be heard only by people who are almost all already aware of the situation. And for the people on the other side, for those who promote lies and this madness, you will start to appear more and more like a hateful bigot or a racist. This is how they see people who are standing up for the truth. When they make those accusations in public, that is also when they censor you, because there is simply no arguments to counter the facts. When they run out of arguments, they turn hostile and dismissive. The truth does not win in our world, Mr. Webb. You should already know that because you are a historian, and the history is written by the victors. Today, they are the people who win over us in the public sphere, by their numbers, the money which stands behind them, the system. Generally, our situation is bad, and it's getting worse every day. I'm just wondering how long will it take before questioning narration of history presented by non-white historians will be seen as bigotry or racism, same as it is criminal today to misgender someone by doctors and professors. A political solution is not an option, Nothing in politics will change for the better. Sane, independent and competent politicians have no chance to gain true political power in our countries, in our corrupt system. If things will continue this way, the future will be way worse for all of us. The question is, what can people like us do to save our countries, Mr. Webb? Is it all about being on our own, abandoning the sinking ship, leaving the lands of our ancestors and to escape elsewhere to search for a place to settle down in and hope for the best? I assure you, it's not going to work as well, as long as we are forced to live within the current globalized world system. Money and escaping from one country to another is just buying you extra time. But in the end, you will end up at the bottom with all of us, no matter how rich you are. There is no escape. Our current situation as a true European people who stand up for reason and sanity in this world is miserable. I would like to know if you agree with me on that, Mr. Webb. But I do not want to push anybody down into depression and resignation from trying. I do have a solution, a realistic solution, which I would like to discuss with you and which you might want to consider by researching material on my channel. But I also designed something to help people who are sharing our concerns here and now. Maybe you could help me to inform your subscribers about this opportunity as well. I will also link materials related to my project in the description below. Also, Mr. Webb, I would like to clarify for you 3 possible future scenarios which we are expecting to come out from the current world situation. Scenario A. The system will continue developing into the direction of absolute slavery, maintaining its current functionality at least for the next 20 years, while evolving our European countries into multicultural nations similar to what we may observe today in the North and South America or North Africa, for example, while at the same time introducing Chinese-level police state policies, monitoring everything we do, spend money on, and everything we show an interest in will be recorded by the system, evaluated and rewarded or punished based on the standards of the unofficial social credit system enforced on us by the state or major corporations. So, we won't have the possibility to organize or protest against it because, on an individual level, we will be punished by losing our privileges and rights to operate equally in our society. The only way for a relatively normal life will be about submitting to the dictated standards or way of thinking from those who are shaping the mainstream narration. I would like to point out here that people like us will be punished severely in the future for what we are talking about on our channels. By doing what we do, we are taking a great risk. You might be not so much concerned about it because of your age, but people like me still need to care about job and my social life in the society. Abolishment of the middle class will take place to eliminate the last social class which might have means to organize and oppose this madness in our countries. We will own nothing, and our purpose in life will be to serve whoever rules over us from the international level of our globalized system. We will be told and brainwashed to be happy about it. Obviously, every idea related to nationalism or patriotism will be seen as bad, hateful, fascist. So, people with such beliefs and values will become outcasts, thrown to an absolute margin of society, or in prisons, or maybe some work camps in the future. In few generations, true European people will become rare in Europe. History will be rewritten a lot more, giving undeserved credit to non-Europeans in shaping Europe for the better, while blaming Europeans for everything that went wrong. Our countries will be moved more and more to economic ruin, where laws and regulations will be changed to such an extent that acts of euthanasia or abortion will be praised as heroism to help maintain population quotas. People will be too distracted, too busy to form any higher ideas or care about morality. Our traditional European civilization will be dead, taken over by a cancerous culture, where everything that's degenerate will be seen as normal, where people will praise and celebrate the worst qualities in people, slowly leaving behind all the great achievements of our ancestors. Also, with the downfall of Christianity and the miserable lives of people in our countries because of the worsening economic situation, the Islam will be spreading and evolving into the most radicalized forms. With time, there won't be safe lands or spaces for European people on this planet. The hate toward Europeans will escalate to such an extent that dating within your own race will be seen as racism. Even today we have articles claiming that having white babies is racist and bad for the planet, so obviously all those things will skyrocket in the future as soon as European people become minorities in their own countries. Scenario B. The stabilization of our countries will be progressing with worsening economic situation, which will eventually lead to an escalation of violence on the streets. First, just a drastic growth of violent crimes, robbery, etc. But eventually, larger groups divided by class, religion, and ethnic group interest will create civil unrest across many regions, eventually consuming whole countries in a civil conflict, of which the results are too unpredictable because we have too many old people with fighting spirit and any sense of loyalty to our values, traditions, who are losing strength with age, and too many young people with weak mentality from which majority will never be of fighters able and willing to stand up for defense and preservation of our civilization. One thing is for sure, that whatever bad will be happening in the West, the European people, especially nationalists, will be blamed for it in the mainstream narration, just as it was happening during the Black Lives Matter protests in America, where we could witness cities on fire, and why the media was talking about peaceful protests, and the so-called evil white nationalists who were escalating the situation by trying to maintain order and defend their own neighborhoods. So a similar narration is to be expected in the future. Please note one thing here. People were siding not with those who wanted to maintain order, but people overwhelmingly across all European countries were honoring the Black Lives Matter movement, ignoring all the facts about the true events from that time. This is the state of modern society. Either way, the outcome of this scenario leads to either scenario A, where peace will be restored and the governments will take our remaining rights away under the excuse of restoring peace and security within society, or to scenario C. Scenario C, which many people are hoping for, is another world conflict which may eventually put an end to this madness. But even in this scenario, the outcome is deeply questionable, so let's hope we don't need to live through it. I am wondering, Mr. Webb, what are your thoughts on that? What type of outcome are you expecting from the current world situation and the state of our modern society? After all, you are witnessing everything that is going on, so what should we be expecting in your opinion? I also have one more question. What motivates you to do what you are doing? Is it some higher ideas and respect for history itself, or maybe your children and you are concerned about their future in this world as well? Please let me know. I would like to understand you and your worldview better. In fact, I would like to discuss all of that with you in a public discussion or a debate. I will send you an invite by email and I hope you will agree. I must confess, when I told my friend I will appeal to you, he said it would be a waste of time. claiming that people from your generation cannot be reasoned with and are responsible for allowing the current situation to occur in our country in the first place. Lots of people who understand how bad the situation is are blaming your generations for being passive and irresponsible while shaping the society and politics within our countries when it was still possible. So, I really hope I managed to appeal to your reason. If you care about the well-being of your country and its history, then yes, we must be working together over clearly defined goals, helping each other in those critical times, and do more than only talking about the problems. If you propose any solution of your own for our current miserable situation, I would really like to hear it and discuss it with you. But if we don't do anything that will have a realistic impact on our situation, then I assure you, we will lose everything that we stand for with time. We will remain disorganized in our agonizing state, and eventually we will end up destroyed with the rest of our civilization. I will leave you all the links related to interesting research material in the description below, as well as links to videos explaining my work, and I will send you an email with an invitation for the public discussion where we could discuss the situation and possible solutions. I would like to be sure we have the same understanding of how severe the current situation is and discuss possible differences as well. Thank you for listening to the end, and I will be looking forward to hearing your reply, either in the form of a video response or, if you will agree, in the public discussion. And as a confirmation that you heard this message, please leave a comment in the comment section below.